Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavidyankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Bruhaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayu Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Rutam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Bhaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So up to now we saw that Brahman is Satyam, Jnanam and Anantam. Okay, existence, which is consciousness, which is limitless. Then what was said is, where do I know this Brahman? Okay, so that yo Veda Nihitam Guhaya, okay, where you know everything else. And what is that place where you know everything in this universe is in your buddhi. Okay. Now in your buddhi, how is this Brahman known? Okay. Is it known as an object? No. If it was known as an object, what would be the case? It would be just something which is, any object is within time and space, and it cannot be Anantam. Okay? So the very fact that Brahman is limitless, okay, it certainly cannot be known as one of the objects in the universe, either very small or anything very big, because it is still an object. Okay? So then how is it known? It is known in the buddhi as the very nature of I. Okay? So as I had said, that I am is self-evident. Everybody knows I am. Okay? But one's sense of I gets mixed up with many different things. Okay? So now the highest gain is seeing oneself in a true light. Okay? So oneself's true nature is existence, and I know that I exist. But on that existence, I have superimposed many things. Those superimpositions, through inquiry, I have to let go. Okay? I also know that I am conscious being. But that consciousness, generally we think, is confined to inside. Okay? So we have to release that consciousness which is self-evident to us. We have to release that consciousness from all the limited meanings that we give because of our understanding, wrong understanding. Okay? And we have to understand that Brahman which is existence and consciousness, is that self-evident I am, which is all the time revealing itself to us. I am, I am, I am, I am. That is something which is always there, but without any of our own notions, but in a way that its real nature is. Okay. So how is this process of knowing takes place? Like we saw, that the Shastra is committed to making you see this reality. It is not a kind of a mystical, the whole teaching tradition is not a mystical experience, right? It's not that you sit there and you just somehow dawn upon this, right? And then people get inspired by that, so something which is dawning upon you, okay? And then try to recreate that experience. It's nothing about that. Okay? The experiences don't make us any wiser, because we have thousands of experiences, including the experience of non-duality in our deep sleep. Every night, we don't even need to wait for one thing that happens. Okay? We sometimes find a mind which actually gets totally resolved. Even in a waking, in meditation, sometimes the mind is totally resolved. Very deep level of resolution. But does it make us wiser? Wiser means that it's not that you just come to some quietude. We are not talking about that. We are talking about discovering myself to be the truth of time and space and truth of every object, which is invariable in, as we saw yesterday, in the manifest and unmanifest creation. That is only based on, that you can understand based on looking into the nature of things. Looking into the nature of time, looking into the nature of space, looking into the nature of object, looking into the nature of the universe, which is in form of manifest and unmanifest, arriving at the fact that there is something which is an invariable presence. It requires certain understanding. Okay? No scientist can claim. In fact, Vedanta, the whole approach is almost like a science approach. Okay? No scientist can get away by saying, oh, I just feel like it and therefore it is true. Nobody can do that. Oh, I just had some intuition and therefore it is true. Okay? Even if somebody had an intuition, right, which is a click, he has to stand in front of the whole scientific community. They will ask him millions of questions. Okay? And he has to show how it is true, and how that logic through which he arrives at that, even though it's an intuition ultimately, right, how it does not contradict any of the existing theories or certain logics, right? It can contradict an existing theory, but it can show you something more, provided it cannot contradict the basic reasoning, right? People accept it as a truth when that is standing uncontradicted. That's the approach. So here we are not into some kind of a loose understanding of some stating certain facts. We are into really seeing things as they are. And seeing things as they are require, in fact, a lot of analysis, because how we see the universe is so completely different from how actually the nature of things are. And this is why it all seems abstract to us. Because I'm used to looking at the universe in a very specific framework. And that framework is highly limited in its understanding of things. When that gets shaken and you are shown a totally different picture, which is a total topsy-turvy, it all seems like, my existing thing with which I've been living, not only in this life, but if you take the fact that you've been around for lifetimes, okay, when that gets shaken, it all seems very abstract. But because it seems to be totally different and counterintuitive, okay, you cannot just say, oh, let me stay within that framework, because that is a framework which is a wrong framework. You have been given the potential to break away from that, and if you don't use it appropriately, then you are the loser. Okay, this is what is being said. Now let us look into the fact that how does this knowledge take place? Okay, in the buddhi about self-evident I. As I had said, that it is the teaching where there is a growing clarity. Okay? It's not that only when I understand my true nature as Satyam, Dhanam, Anantam, Brahma, then I have understood, and otherwise I have not understood anything. That's not the case. Okay? The minute you start inquiring into things, right, even if you have not understood the final reality, you do understand some things. When the teaching shows you that this table which you think to be real is not as real as what you think, you understand that. Right? So that means it's not that you have understood Satyam, Dhanam, Anantam, Brahma is what I am, but you have understood the relativity of empirical world. Okay. Then there is a methodology which shows you the fact that the cause of the universe is not just one entity sitting somewhere and deciding your future or your destiny. It is a presence everywhere. You understand that part. You see what I mean? You begin to correct your vision of things one after the other. Many errors that you have are getting removed and getting replaced with the right vision of things. Even if you haven't got to the final point, you see that. Okay. Then you will see the inquiry into the nature of I which is coming up. Okay. The different mistakes that we make. Why, if this existence and consciousness is self-evident, why do we miss it? Because we make mistakes. And where are the places that where we make mistakes is coming up. Okay. So when that is shown to you, you know that yeah, this is a mistake. I take myself, for example, to be the body. But body is nothing but atoms and particles. And if one atom is not I, many atoms put together don't become I. So you understand that. Okay. So what I am saying is that different parts are analyzed and you begin to understand some parts. But the whole vision of what Shastra is saying may not be totally clear. But you are moving towards that. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You put this part in place, then you put that part in place, then you put this part in place, then slowly the picture of the whole starts emerging. Okay. And then in the process, you are also reducing your subjectivities while living in the world. Okay. We all suffer from problems of anger, frustrations, sadness, fears. These are all, nobody can claim to be free from that. Okay. And not only we suffer from that, but that governs how we respond to the universe too. So those particular orientations are my personal orientations when I deal with the universe. I have to undo those orientations because there is not much truth in those orientations. So I have to examine those and I have to undo those. Okay. So that is going on parallelly. You are inquiring into the nature of the universe, the reality of the table, reality of the nature of the cause, reality into the nature of I, and parallelly you are also working on you as an individual, right, who is transacting with the universe with a certain orientation and trying to undo these orientations through a process of growth. So that means everything is working towards that final vision of understanding. This is why we call it a process. It's a process. it doesn't just happen like that, even though it is an accomplished fact. On one hand, you can say it, you are already limitless. How far are you from there? It's an, so that is something which can be known. But on the other hand, you can see how the whole teaching takes place. And then there is a growing clarity. And the growing clarity grows, and at some point you can say, yes, I have understood. Okay? It's like, many times even for a scientist, I think Prakash was talking, that happens, he was talking about that Madame Curie, right? So many things are worked on at the logical level, then you go to sleep or something, or when you're deep in thought and it clicks, right? But there is a years and years and years of study and knowledge behind that. So we only think that particular thing we pay attention to, and then we don't pay attention to the years of dwelling into it. Okay? Or even Einstein, for example, it all happens in form of a click, but there is a years of science behind it. Then there is a paradigm shift, that something new happens. Okay? Where you are in touch with what is, which nobody else has arrived at so far. Okay? But there is a years of science and inquiry and rigorous thinking behind it. Okay? So in this case also, at one point there is a click, right? Because it is something where where that knowledge is as clear as a daylight. There is no vagueness, there is no doubt, there is no point of, oh yeah, now I have it. Many people say, oh, I have the vision, but I cannot retain it. That shows that one has not understood. Okay? This vision is not memory based. It is like, if you have understood that this is atoms and particles, you don't need to keep on remembering it or reminding yourself all the time. It's not like you do a japa, oh yeah, this is atoms, this is atoms, this is, it's understood, right? It's there for you, for in your understanding. Okay? Now can you say, oh, then do you feel that this is only atoms and particles? See, these are all very, very common questions. You have to understand the nature of knowledge, otherwise you continue to be in your favor, which keeps you away from understanding what is. This is why these things are discussed extensively, because it understands human orientation. And again that orientation has to be removed. Even if it is removed explicitly, we can still carry it. But the teacher's job is to do it explicitly. And it is for the benefit of the other person. Okay? So is it a matter of feeling that, oh, this is all just space? Is it a matter of feeling? Just a matter of knowing what is. Okay? Neither it is based on memory, nor it is based on any feelings. It is just coming to know what is. Okay? So that is what we call vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam is how does you, it analyzes how does any knowledge take place. Okay? Any knowledge, from a most simple knowledge of this pot to an extremely complex scientific theory, how does the knowledge take place? Every knowledge takes place through what we call vritti jnanam. The reality is whatever it is, but I have to understand it as it is, and that is what we call knowledge. Okay? Now, when I want to know the pot, I have to use an appropriate means of knowledge. I have to use my eyes. The eyes will send the signal to the mind. Okay? The mind, the physical pot does not enter into the mind. What happens is that there is a thought form created, which in Sanskrit is called vritti, okay? Which is, if it is in keeping with the external pot, then I recognize, I have the capacity to recognize that vritti that takes place in my mind, which is a thought of a pot. I recognize that and I say, this is the pot. Okay? So that vritti that is there does two functions. It does two functions. It is One is called vritti vyapti and the other one is called phala vyapti. Okay, what there is a thought form, that is what we call vritti vyapti. The mind assumes the form of the pot. Okay, and then there is a result for that, phala vyapti. The result is that the ignorance of pot is gone. Vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. Even if you take, let's say, for example, the knowledge of mathematics. To say, the teacher is saying something and the teacher, provided the teacher has understood, is demonstrating something. When in your mind, the thought which arises is exactly in keeping with what is intended by the teacher, then that is what we call knowledge. If your mind captures it differently, then that is not knowledge, there is error. Every examination that we have in the college and university is actually to test how, whether what is intended by the teacher is captured by you or not. And by asking certain questions, the teacher determines how much you have understood. Right? So that means that there is word which is used, right? And it has a certain meaning that it needs to convey. There is an intended meaning. And your ability to capture that intended meaning in form of your own thoughts, okay, is what you call knowledge. And there are two functions. Your thought has to assume the form of what is intended by the teacher, and then if it assumes the exact form, then there is a removal of ignorance. Vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. Now, what happens, this is true for any knowledge. Any knowledge in the universe takes place like that. Okay? Now, what happens in form of this knowledge? The process is slightly different. As Sarthaka was mentioning yesterday, that that particular process is what we call akhanda akara vritti. Okay? So we need to understand. It all sounds very technical, but really it's meant to make you see how things are, right? So what is this akhandakara vritti? In the case of Brahman, also the text have intended meaning. The teacher, provided the teacher has understood the intended meaning, is conveying that meaning through the words. Okay? Now, those words are potent and they are capable of giving you the knowledge. So you are constantly trying to understand Atma being Brahman, the nature of Ishvara and all of that. Now, if your vrittis, what you create in your mind, are in keeping with what is conveyed, then that is what we call. But if there is a distortion, what is created, a mental image which is created in your mind, is not in keeping with what is intended, then there is error. And you keep on refining it further and refining it further. And you let go notions and you let go notions and you let go notions. Finally, there is a vritti. As a result of this process of elimination and giving up one's wrong notions, there is a vritti which will give rise to the knowledge exactly as it is intended to be conveyed. Exactly as it is. There is a total harmony between what the Shastra is saying, what the teacher is conveying, and what you understand. There is no discrepancy. Okay? And that vritti is what we call akhandakara vritti. Now, that vritti is slightly different from every other vritti in one way. Okay? In the case of the knowledge of pot, the thought arises which assumes the form of a pot. In the case of limitless, can you capture it in a given form? You can't. Right? If you captured it in a given form, it will become limited. So it cannot have what we call vritti vyapti. It cannot have that. Right? You cannot capture it as a given thing and then understand it as a pot, a clay, a mountain, a river, energy. No. Right? And at the same time, the knowledge can take place because it is about the self-evident I, and so it does the second function, phalavyapti, that it removes the ignorance about the nature of I. Okay? So it is not capturing the I as an object or limitlessness as an object, and at the same time that vritti, as a result of hearing the Shastra, okay, does the job of removing the ignorance. So there is no vritti vyapti, but there is phala vyapti. This is what we call akhandakara vritti. Like every vritti, having produced that knowledge, it goes away. No vritti stays with you. When you've understood E is equal to mc square, that vritti, that thought which gave you that knowledge doesn't stick to your mind. It goes away, but it has done its job. This is why it is true that that particular thing is a vritti, right? And therefore, if it takes place in his mind, only he is alive to that reality, not everybody else. And if it takes place in your mind, you are alive to that reality. So every vritti takes place in the mind, okay? And vritti, when it is in keeping with what is to be understood, we call it knowledge. In every vritti there are two functions. One is the thought, which is vritti, takes the form of that object to be known, and then it removes the ignorance. In this case, because it is not a given thing in the universe, right? It does not assume a given form. Then you can ask, if it does not take on any given form, how can the knowledge take place? Because it is about you. If it was totally unknown object, the knowledge will not take place. Because it is about you, which is self-evident I. All the false superimpositions on that self-evident I can go away when that vritti arises. Having done its job, it will go. And from then on, you can say there is a total clarity. There is no longer any confusion about what is what. Now, that confusion does not mean you reach some other plane. This is again something which is very, very important. There is no such thing called plane, right? Limitlessness cannot be divided into planes. That is basic logic, right? You can't go somewhere else and I'm not here and I call it limitlessness. Limitlessness by its definition means it pervades everything. There is no place where it is not. There is no place of placing yourself somewhere and removing it from somewhere else. Okay, so this is what we call that akhandakara vritti, through which the knowledge of Brahman as me. It's not a theoretical inquiry into some abstract concept of Brahman. No. There is no way Brahman can be understood as a concept. Because Brahman happens to be you. The only place that consciousness is available to you is as I. In no other way consciousness is available to you. The only existence which is self-existent in this universe is you. I am. It's not abstract. Okay. So this is what he says. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. Then that buddhi, where is that? That buddhi exists in what makes the buddhi what it is. We have seen that the buddhi is nothing but all these neurons, right, which are working, which gives you that capacity to think. Okay? And that behind all these electromagnetic and all the electric activities, neuron activities that are going on, there is an intelligence which is the all knowledge, which makes it possible for your buddhi to function in a given way. So that buddhi itself is existing where? In that all knowledge, right? Where there is your buddhi, where you have your thinking capacity, there is a more basic intelligence which makes your neurons work in a way that it is capable of thinking and capturing some information. So that is indicated that buddhi parame vyomni, okay, that all knowledge, that buddhi itself exists where? In that all knowledge, which is what we call Ishvara. Now, somebody may think that Ishvara is only with reference to the manifest world. When I talk about time, space and objects, it is all within manifest world. So we have to understand Ishvara as Ishvara is, not from the standpoint of what we are comfortable with. So Upanishads stretch our understanding of Ishvara further, of all knowledge further. And they say that this all knowledge is not only manifest in the universe, making everything what is, and through the laws which govern everything, but it is also there in the unmanifest. Okay? So there we come to this question of before the creation, whether the cause was there or not. By logic, if something is the cause of the universe, it has to precede the universe. It has to be present. Otherwise, you can't call it the cause. Right? Now, that means that all knowledge was present and it had both the knowledge and the capacity, but it was in a potential form. So this so-called phenomena called creation is nothing but manifestation of that all knowledge in form of time, space and object. So all knowledge is present in both unmanifest and manifest universe equally. In one potential form and in the other manifest form. How can I appreciate this particular fact? Whatever is the reality is actually available. The biggest blessing is whatever is the reality is available for me to be appreciated here and now. If I look at the so-called manifest universe, itself is actually nothing but, in the so-called manifest universe, there are many things which are unmanifest now, which will become manifest next second, or 1 year from now, or 10 years from now. Right? Or there were things in the past which were manifest earlier and are not manifest now. Right? So, we don't know, we see a lot of these fiction movies, science fiction movies. What would the world be like in 2000, some 30, and they have this totally different cars and totally different dressing and totally different kind of a thing, and buildings and architecture and all of that. Okay, so that means what? That world that is not yet manifest, right? And it's in your imagination, it would manifest like that. But what actually will happen, nobody knows for sure, right? But what is important for us to realize is that within the manifest universe, there is so much which is unmanifest at present. Okay? And what was in the past is unmanifest now. So that means even the present universe, where you call it a manifest universe because there is a time, space and object, constantly there is an interplay between manifest and unmanifest, manifest and unmanifest. 1 second, which is now, is gone. By the time I finish saying now, that second is gone. Okay? At a minute level in our body, the cells are changing. Some cells go away, new cells get generated. All this is something, what is manifest becomes unmanifest, and what is unmanifest becomes manifest. At 4 o'clock, maybe the body will have different cells which are unmanifest now. Okay. So that all knowledge is what decides what becomes manifest and what becomes unmanifest. That also follows an order that is within that intelligence. How is it that some cells disappear but you tangibly don't feel anything and there is a seeming continuity? There is that work of intelligence. So that all knowledge is equally present in manifest and unmanifest, and it brings about that continuity. It decides how things are going to unfold 1 minute from now, 10 minutes from now, 100 years from now, 2000 years from now, by taking in all the inputs constantly. Okay? So that the presence of all knowledge in manifest and unmanifest is something which I can appreciate here and now. It's not just a matter of belief. You can say, yeah, I was not there at the time of the creation when it was unmanifest, so how can I know it? Because the relationship of all knowledge to manifest and unmanifest is available for me here and now, because in the manifest universe there are two aspects right now. And I can appreciate the presence of all knowledge, which makes that transition possible. Unmanifest seed at a given point in time manifests in form of that one big tree, mango tree, all following that intelligence. When that sprout will happen, all predictable. Science can predict how long it will take, in what manner it will come. The seed of mango tree will produce mango tree and not jackfruit tree. All this is part of the intelligence which programs the whole thing. This is what we call Ishvara. And it is there when there is seed, it is there when there is tree, it is there, it pervades everything. When the tree is unmanifest in the seed, that intelligence is still there. And when it becomes manifest, it's still there. Then the tree goes away at a given point in time, how long each tree, what kind of life it has. In there also there is the presence of intelligence. Okay? So it's constant. The forms keep on becoming from manifest to unmanifest, but the presence of all knowledge is in and through both. And this is why you have to expand your understanding of Ishvara, this all knowledge, as that which is there both in manifest and unmanifest universe. And you can extend it to the beginning of the universe, because the same logic applies with reference to the beginning of the universe. Okay? And for us, the second thing which is very important, which comes out of that, is that generally we postulate a creation which is linear in nature. Okay? So therefore we always ask this question, what is the first? Right? People ask, what is the first karma? What is the first, first person? Okay? But because we view the world not as a linear, but in a cyclical form of manifest, unmanifest, it is without any beginning. We call it anadi.
We call it
Anadi.
anadi.
Okay? And the fact that it is anadi can be easily appreciated, because any question that you ask, right, that I am very much present, that day Aruna was saying, right, so therefore I must have a cause. Because I'm present, that itself shows that I must have a cause. So you take it back to your parents, then their parents, then their parents, then their parents. Then you ask, who is the first parent?
And then where did he come from?
Exactly. Because if that person is already there, that parent was once a child. And then who is the father? So you never find an answer. Not because Vedanta cannot answer. No. Because your question comes from a postulation that there is a linearity, where the reality is that there is cyclical nature of things. This is the problem. So some of these questions people think Vedanta cannot answer, but it's not true. The questions cannot be answered because they are asked from a given standpoint, which itself is a false postulation. That postulation itself is not correct. Okay? Or chicken and egg. Same thing. What comes first, chicken or egg? In anything, not only in case of this, in any given thing in this universe, you cannot find a linearity. You don't find this is the beginning. And therefore, what Vedanta says, that there is the cycles of manifestation and unmanifestation, which is anadi, timeless. The time becomes manifest and times becomes unmanifest, and then manifest again, and then unmanifest again, and there is no end to that. So there is no first thing. That question cannot be answered and need not be answered, because it starts with a linear vision of the universe, which is not true.
So when we say manifest and unmanifest,
Yeah.
it really doesn't, I mean, it's not something like manifestation of the universe or the galaxy or things like that. It could be anything. The smallest of the smallest object could also be a manifestation
So
in the world.
what I'm saying is, that what it says is that before the manifest universe, which includes time, space, and all the objects came into being, the world was there. All knowledge was there in an unmanifest form. Right? Then it became manifest in form of time, space, and objects. Now I'm saying, how can I appreciate that reality? The presence of all knowledge in manifest as well as unmanifest. Because for me to comprehend that particular phenomena is available to me now. Even within the manifest creation, when I observe, a cell which was manifest 10 years ago is not manifest now. And the cell which is manifest now will not be there 12 years from now. Okay? And what decides what becomes manifest at what time and becomes unmanifest at what time, in which manner, where there is seeming continuity, that is a play of all intelligence, all knowledge. Once I see that it is true, I can easily understand what Shruti is talking about, that before any manifestation, the all knowledge is there in a potential form, which then becomes manifest later. So I can understand. I can stretch it further and I can say, that's understandable. Because everything is available for me to verify in a given way here and now. So therefore it doesn't become just some kind of a belief.
What I am trying to understand is, when we say manifestation and unmanifestation, what's the difference there? Like when you say unmanifest,
That is a cell which is not there now. Right? For example, or the child which is not there now will come into being. So that the child is, as far as the form is concerned, is unmanifest. Or in the seed, the tree is unmanifest because it has not yet come. But there is an intelligence.
So when a person dies, it's not that the person has become unmanifest.
The physical body becomes unmanifest.
Unmanifest, okay, that's
And before the body is born, then it is unmanifest. Then while it is alive, we call it manifest. When it dies, we call it unmanifest. Okay? But what I am saying is, even while the body is alive, which is manifest, okay, constantly there is an interplay of manifest unmanifest at a cellular level.
See, the biology says every second in our body, there are 100,000 new cells coming into being. Every second.
And old ones dying,
And old ones.
constantly dying.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is what
Same is said of thoughts.
same is said of thoughts.
Yeah.
Exactly. The thought before it comes into being, it is unmanifest. And then while it is there, it is manifest, and then it is unmanifest. So everything, and still there is an order.
Yeah,
So-
like the cells, even the thoughts are manifest and every
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
microsecond. probably.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And what we are showing is that that thought which occurs now was there in a potential form, right? And that all intelligence, the all knowledge, is the one which decides which form is going to come, which thought form is going to come into being at this given point in time, and how long it is going to last, and when it is going to go. So there is a design which is all intelligence, which is in and through the manifest and unmanifest.
So one of the most beautiful uses of the phrase is when Marisa takes the camera and says, "Manifest your smile." No?
That is true. Because it is there in a potential. Right? So this is what he says, Parame Vyomni. Now, the next verse it says, so what do we understand? Okay, that this particular knowledge is known in Buddhi. Okay, and in Buddhi it cannot be known as an object. It can only be known as the nature of I, because existence and consciousness cannot be captured as an object, but only as I. Okay, and that existence and consciousness which we generally confine it and give attributes such as dark, big, small, or whatever, okay, these are all not the real attributes of this existence and consciousness. So the person who recognizes that gains the highest, because the person comes to know one's true nature without any ambiguity or without any confusion. Okay? And that buddhi itself is part of this. How is this buddhi made in a way that it has that potential of knowing? That is a work of all knowledge. The parameters of the capacity of human brain, what it can understand, is already programmed. And that all knowledge is not only there within manifest Jagat, but it is also there when the Jagat is unmanifest.
So when you say it's already programmed, does it mean that what could be understood by a particular buddhi is already defined?
I mean two things. One is that programmed in the sense of potential, okay, the range. So the human range is different from range of a cow. Right? So what cow cannot basically do, a human being can do. Right? Now within that human brain, each one has a different capability, even though it works within the range. Right? So that again, who has what, is also the work of all intelligence. And over a period of time, you can use your free will, right, to either underutilize it or make proper utilization. That is also the play of all intelligence.
So the contact question there would be, does it mean that how the free will could be used is also defined as part of the buddhi?
that the free will has a certain potentials, okay, and the potential for a human is that to know the limitlessness of oneself, and you can't have anything higher than that. You can't have anything higher than limitlessness. And this is why they say a human birth is a unique birth. Okay? And if you miss this opportunity to inquire into the truth and to know your true nature, then there is Mahati Vinashti. It's a total waste of a human birth. Because you have been given the potential to know the limitless, and you are settling for something which is very limited. And there is the distance between limited and limitless is what? The distance between finite and infinity is what? Infinite. So there is a big loss. Right. Now let's move on to the next thing. He says now the result. What does happen to this wise person? Everybody is interested in knowing that what happens to this wise person once one knows oneself to be this existence, consciousness which is limitless. What happens? Okay, so that he says, Saha, that person, Ashnute Sarvan Kaman Saha. Okay, that person gets everything that is desired. Okay, now how do you understand that? Okay, generally, if you don't have tradition with you, and you are using your own brain, what happens?
Lots of errors.
Exactly, lots of errors. Because our general process of desiring a given thing, right, is what? I desire a diamond necklace, right? Then I work very hard to get the money that I must have in order to get that diamond necklace, right? Then I have to go to the shop and I have to buy that, right? And then I have to get it. So that is what we call fulfillment of desire, right? Now, this is our normal way. This is how we fulfill each and every desire. The desirer looks for an object of desire, works very hard to get that object of desire, and then at times, not always, at times succeeds in getting what one is looking for. Now when the Upanishad says that the person gets sarvan kaman, everything, all at once, what would you think if you use the present orientation and expand it further? That whatever the wise person thinks of will just come to him. He doesn't have to work like everybody else. I have to work so hard to get one little house in Mumbai. To get a house in Mumbai, you have to work lifetime. Right? And that wise person will just think of a house and the house will come. Or will think of this thing and it will come.
But he won't need it.
Wait. There is a Shastra here. Okay. So what it says. So this is what, this orientation becomes the basis of my creating an image of a wise person. Okay. I will discuss it how many times somebody's capacity to materialize things that we desire is taken as, oh, this person is like Ishvara. Immediate association. We all do it. Now it seems laughable. But it is so common. This is human buddhi, human orientation. And you think this person is wise. Or this person because is able to do things which others cannot do. Right? So then you have to understand the real meaning of what does this mean. It doesn't mean that. It certainly doesn't mean that the person, whatever the person thinks of, just appears right in front and the person doesn't have to make any effort. Okay? It only means one thing. This simultaneously accomplishing all the kama means that in the understanding of the person, the desirer, the object of desire, and the process of desiring, all is relative. All three depend upon I, who is totally free from all three. Like in the case of knowledge, our general understanding is that I am the knower, and there is an object of knowledge, and there is a process of knowing. And what does Shastra reveal consciousness to be? Truth of all three. Itself as not any one of them. So, the status of being a desire, the individual, right? The objects that exist in the universe, as we have seen, each one has a dependent reality, and it depends ultimately on what? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. We've already seen that. And also the very process of going, acquiring, modifying, everything exists within the empirical world, which itself exists because of this one reality, which is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Having known that, nothing in the universe is away from you. My body is away from you by a few meters, centimeters. Okay, but are these two bodies away from the space? From the standpoint of space, space pervades everything. Okay? And if this Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam is the very truth of space, as the space depends upon this Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, wherever there is space, there is the presence of Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So from the standpoint of that Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, is anything ever away from it? Every time you say a dependent reality, the table, can it ever be away from the independent reality, which is the wood? It can never be away. If the whole world has a dependent reality, can it ever be away from that reality upon which it depends? It can never be away. What do we understand by that? Okay, so this existence and consciousness, there is one or there are many? One. It seems to be many because that consciousness seems to be confined to that this seems to be a pocket of consciousness, this seems to be a pocket of consciousness, this seems to be a pocket of consciousness. But it is just like I had explained yesterday. This seems to be a cup space, this seems to be a pot space, this seems to be a mug space. But what is the reality? How many spaces are there? Right? And all these objects, do they divide space? Do they cut the space here? No. They exist in space, they move in space, they don't do anything to space. But space appears to be many. Same. The existence and consciousness appears to be confined there, confined there, confined there. But in reality, it is one undivided whole in which everything moves, upon which everything depends for its existence. It is in and through everything. But it is in and through everything, but it cannot be known as an object, because the only way it can be known is as the truth of the subject, a self-evident I, which is always revealing. There is a small story, okay, which explains that how sometimes, it's a very simple story, but it's a nice story to explain how sometimes things are hidden at a place where we will never suspect, and that always remains a secret. Okay, so that two people are traveling by train, and there is one who is a thief, and the other one is a person, right, a normal person. So this person, during the day of the travel, he's counting his money. He just wants to make sure how much money he has. And this thief who's sitting across from him sees that this person has a lot of money. He's counting, and it seems to be like a huge bundle, right? So then he devises a plan that, okay, let the night come, and I'm going to somehow, he's clever because he's a thief, they know how to take the money away, right? So then he devises a plan that I'm going to steal this money. Okay? So they travel, and he observes him, he sees where he puts his money and everything. So when the night comes, this person who is innocent, he goes to the bathroom and everything, he gets freshened up, gets ready to sleep. And then the thief goes also to get ready, then both of them sleep. Okay? Now, after 2-3 hours, the thief wakes up and starts searching for this money that he saw this man putting, right? He knew exactly where the money was. And he quietly opens, and he says, and that bundle that he saw in a nice envelope, he couldn't find that envelope. Okay? So he searches around and here and there, and he just doesn't find it. Okay? So he's so frustrated, he spends a lot of time, 2-3 hours searching for all the bags, and then he doesn't find it. So the day arises, they both go to the bathroom, they both come out, and then this guy whole day thinks, where could it be, where could it be, where could it be? Okay. The next day he thought, yeah, maybe he's putting it in his pocket, because at night he doesn't want to leave it in a bag. So maybe he has it in his pocket, or he has it in his, in the pants or in his shirt or somewhere. So he says, okay, now tonight I'm going to try and search his body and not the baggage, right? So the night falls, and then again the person goes to the bathroom, the other person goes to the bathroom, they both go to sleep, this guy wakes up, okay, and he very carefully touches different parts of his body and sees and looks for a bundle, nowhere to be found, right? Then again he searches for the bag in case that night he has put it, he looks for it, doesn't find it. Next morning they both wake up. This guy is so frustrated, okay? So in the morning he cannot resist. He says, where did you put this envelope? And he said, what envelope? And he says, that money envelope that you every morning you are counting money, and then at night I'm just watching you where you're keeping, and I cannot find it. And the person says, when I was counting the money the first time, I saw your face. It was kind of clear to me your intention, right? So I decided to hide it in a place.
Quiz, can we guess somebody?
No, let it
No,
tell
no,
the
no, no,
story.
You know already.
I don't know.
Yeah, Puran, you know the story.
No, I don't.
No,
actually.
just carry on.
I can
carry
guess.
on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I decided to hide it where you would least look for it, least suspect it. Okay? So I hid it under your own pillow, thief's pillow, right? Where he would never, this is the last place where he would look. And in the morning when you went to the bathroom, I took it back, right? Same thing. The freedom that we are searching for, right? And whole life goes in looking for that freedom here, going from one place to the other in the so-called material thing, in the so-called spiritual world, in all kinds of things, is very well hidden. Where you'll never look, which is your own self. Okay? It requires a different type of mind to do the search in a other direction, having determined the fact that there is no solution in a way that I'm looking for this freedom. I will never find it, neither in the past, nor in the present, nor in the future. Okay? So nihitam guhayam parame vyoman So oshnute sarvan kaman saha. Once I know that I am, what is my vision? There is a shift in the vision. From the point that I am one little tiny individual in the universe who has to get things that I desire through lot of effort and getting the objects for a finite period of time, because every object that I acquire with a lot of effort, there is no guarantee that it will stay with me. Okay? The lot of money that you have acquired with a lot of effort, ask at the time of financial crisis, how long does it take for it all to go away? Okay? Even if it stays with you, somebody that you love very much and you got married and the person stays with you, that person, now you feel, my God, why did I get married to this person? Okay? So that means any desire that you fulfill through this process, where you think I am one individual who has to get something and I have to make a lot of effort to get it, to keep it with me, right? And then continue to derive pleasure from it, you are always in a yo-yo. Whole life goes in searching and never getting hang over the life. In one shot, you can undo this by knowing that I am not this little individual, limited in time and space, who has to look for things to resolve my mind that seeker sought, as we have seen yesterday, for a given period of time, and try to extend that resolution to get the moments of happiness and trying to extend that. I am the very truth of the whole universe. Every object depends upon me for its existence. Within every object, the world is set up in a way, with reference to myself, I am the subject and everything else is the object. But both the so-called subject and the object depend upon one consciousness, which is my real nature. And the whole game is over. Okay? The desirer and the object of desire are both understood to be mithya, and I am the truth. Mithya means which has a dependent reality, and I am the truth of both. Okay. Now, the other, I want to discuss a little bit this orientation about the so-called capacity to manifest things is powers, right? Because very often the wisdom is equated with certain extraordinary powers that the person has. Immediately there is an association between the power and wisdom, right?
I have a question on that desire object now.
Yeah, you can ask.
So, when you have this understanding which you just told us, how does that change or apply in my material world? So, what happens
Okay.
to my
Okay.
desires?
What happens to my desires is that there are two levels, right? One is what I understand, which is my ultimate vision, right? And the second is that it doesn't mean my individuality will totally go away, right? When a wave understands that I am nothing but water, the wave continues to be in that form. It doesn't have to give up the form, right? So there are two levels. One is what the wave understands, which is in the form of the oneself being the water, and the other one is the form wave, right? Here is the same. What I understand myself to be this existence and consciousness which is not confined to the body or mind or anything, but at the same time there is an individuality here. The body doesn't disappear, the mind doesn't disappear, it remains, right? So I have to continue to transact in the normal world, right? So when I continue to transact in the world, which is an empirical world, it is not that I will never have any desire. No. Okay? Like everybody else, right? A person who has understood, right, may want a job, may desire to get married, may desire to have children.
Those are understandable, but
No, wait, let me explain. Okay? So that means that each of, or may desire diamond necklace. It's not like, oh yeah, because now the person is wise, so therefore the person will not desire anything. That's not true. Right? So each of these, as long as you are an individual, you continue to live in the world. Okay? Those desires may or may not be there. Sometimes naturally you don't have many desires, and that's fine. But there is no rule that you will have zero desires and that you will have only like, yeah, okay, everything is anyway dependent upon me, so I am totally free. That's not true. Right? What is the difference between a wise person and a non-wise person? Because even if you desire promotion and if I also desire promotion, what is the difference between two of us? Okay.
So there is
Please let me
I
finish.
just wanted a word
Okay.
clearance. So is it wise, unwise, or knowledgeable or unknowledgeable?
Wise
No,
means the person who has understood the reality, and non-wise is a person who has not yet understood the reality.
No, I
The
know.
person can be highly ethical, highly good person, but has not understood this reality about one being limitless. That is the unwise. Unwise not in the sense of, unwise or unethical. Only from the standpoint of what one understands or one doesn't understand. Okay? Now, there are different levels. Okay? Now, even if both have the so-called desire, okay, and both may pursue it also, in the case of a person who has not understood, that desire could be, not always, binding or non-binding. What is binding and non-binding desire? Let us look into it. It's very important, right? We generally consider desire to be a bad thing. In the Shastra, there is no such thing as desire being bad. Ichcha, which is desire, is a Shakti. We have three Shaktis. Kriya Shakti, the capacity to do. Jnana Shakti, capacity to know. And Ichcha Shakti, which is capacity to desire. So these are the three these are the three endowments that a human being is given. And there is nothing wrong in having that. That is the first thing that we must understand, right? Spirituality is not about not having desires. The very word, when we say mumukshu, okay, itself is what? Desire to be free. When we say jignasu, desire to know. Okay, so the first complex that we have around desire we have to eliminate, and not to see it as something bad or something to be avoided. Okay, if that is the case, why very commonly desire is portrayed to be something which is bad? Okay, so what generally people mean when they say that it is problematic, I don't want to use the word bad at all, right? That the desire becomes a problem is when they talk about desires which are binding in nature. Okay? So what is a binding desire? You are walking, right, and you see a very nice new iPhone model. Okay, you see the now what 4S is out, or is 4S still?
5.
5. Okay, so iPhone 5, right? Now 6, right? So you have iPhone 6 displayed on a showroom, right? and then you see it and you said, oh my God, the new model is out, I have to have it, right? Nothing wrong. Sure, why not, right? You go into the store and you ask for the price, okay? Then the price is something which is certainly not within your budget, right? So that means I don't know what is the price now. How many rupees? 50,000?
60. Yeah.
Yeah, 60,000 rupees. And your budget is 20,000 rupees, right?
iPhones are banned now,
So,
right? There was a case and iPhones are banned.
sorry?
iPhones were banned in US recently because of Apple lost a patent against Samsung.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they are supposed to only support the older versions till something else happens. So
What is the time?
You finish it.
Okay, I'll finish it slightly quickly and I'll take it up again.
sorry.
So, so you go in and you ask for the price. Now the price is 60,000 and your budget is 20,000, right? Then you feel, oh my God, right? Up to then there is no problem. You are a rational person. You want to have something. There is nothing wrong. And if you have earned the money ethically, right? There is nothing wrong in going and buying something that you like. Now, in this particular case, you cannot afford it, right? If you are just able to make that rational decision and say, sorry, I cannot afford it, you walk out, right? And then you can just walk away. This desire is what we call non-binding desire. It does not pose any problem in me. Even if it is not fulfilled, it's fine. When does the desire become binding? When I walk out of this shop, right, and I'm constantly thinking, oh my God, I really want this iPhone. Look at my neighbor, he has it. Everybody, all my friends are using this model, and I'm the only one who's kind of, left with this old model. How will that look, right? So that means that desire has not left you at the certain kind of a rational level. Okay, it occupies your mind. You go home night also you think about, oh, how wonderful that iPhone is, and things like that. So it stays with you. Okay, so it has a capacity to bind you. That is what we call binding desire. What happens is that sometimes it can take increasing magnitudes. Okay, then you will not even stop. Obsession. You will not only stop at that level and say that, oh my God, I really would like to have it and I cannot have it. Then you will say, oh, look at my husband. In case you are depending upon your husband, not always, right, to give you the money. Then look at my neighbor's husband, he's so kind. Okay, but my husband is all the time giving me a budget and asking me to confine. So now the whole phone thing has shifted to husband, right? Then you blame that, oh, okay, maybe sometimes he cannot afford it. So he's not successful. He cannot do well. He cannot even please his boss, right? From where to where, right? And then you start expressing that anger in terms of your relationship with that person. You put him down without even knowing it. You can't even succeed. What happened? What happened to the promotion that you were supposed to get? Okay? In so many ways, it holds you, it affects you, it affects your relationships, it affects so many of your transactions, your viewpoint, your frustration, without you even recognizing it. This is what we call binding desires. And we think that this is just laughable, but this is how we are. Okay? We had an example of a woman who was from an extremely wealthy family. She grew up as the daughter of an extremely successful businessman. Okay? When she was around 11 years old or 12 years old, the father lost the empire. So they had to really come down in terms of their lifestyle. Okay, she went to the best of the schools and she had very, very nice home to live, and the latest fashion clothes and bags and this and that. And then all of a sudden they found that they had to move to a smaller apartment. You cannot afford all the things that you're used to. So this woman at the age of 11, when they sees this whole shift, right, there is a huge kind of an impact on her. Okay? But you have to live with that. Then she gets married. Okay? So in that marriage, unconsciously, she wants her husband to get what she had as a child in her childhood. So she wants the husband to be extremely successful, to really come up in his business, because what she was deprived from her at the age of 11, she wants to rebuild, because at that time there was a loss, and that she's carrying that loss, and she wants to get rid of that loss. Okay? So there is a tremendous pressure that she puts on her husband to succeed according to the level that she is expecting. Okay? So you can imagine the relationship she is going to have with her husband. There is so much pressure, and no matter what the husband gets or whatever he does is not good enough, because that doesn't yet come to the extreme wealth that she had. So there is always looking down, and that looking down manifests in form of, in a social gathering, you make jokes about the other person, you know. So very, very often that happens. A husband and wife, when they don't get along, this one or the other suppresses it. But when there is a social gathering and the dinner table and all, each one kind of starts in a kind of they use humor to put each other down. Okay? And that is just a way. It's not that it is humor. It's not humor.
It's anger.
It's anger. But it's expressed in a way, and there is almost like exposing the other person in front of everyone. And then that other person, when that person gets angry, you say, but no, I was just joking. Why are you taking it so seriously? You see the levels of manipulations that happen, and how frequent and how often we are all subject to that. And this is all because the desires are left binding. Because the desires are left binding, and we let it manifest in so many ways which are destructive in nature. This is why we call desires to be problematic. But what is the solution? The solution is not to have a desirelessness. Not at all. Because desire is a privilege that is given to you. The solution is to make every desire from binding to non-binding. Okay? How do you make a desire from binding to non-binding? We will see in the next class. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.